Have you ever wondered why certain people live rent-free in our minds? Not just as passing thoughts, but as quiet echoes that return again and again long after conversations have ended. Long after their presence has left the room. It is as if they have pressed something invisible into the fabric of our memory. Something that refuses to be erased. This lingering presence is not born from manipulation, nor from playing games of chase and retreat. It is not about pretending to be someone you are not. In truth, it is something much deeper and far more timeless. It is about the way we leave emotional fingerprints on each other. The way human hearts recognize intensity more than perfection. You see, the human mind is not a library of facts and figures. It is a garden of feelings. A landscape where moments grow wild if they are watered with emotion. You may forget what a person was wearing the first day you met them. But you will never forget the warmth in their laughter. The way their presence made you breathe easier. Or even the sting of a harsh word that cut deeper than it should have. These impressions, both the soft and the sharp, become woven into memory, binding us to people in ways we cannot fully explain. The great psychologist Carl Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." And when we think about connection, his words remind us that what binds us is not surface charm or flawless appearances, but depth. Depth awakens. Depth leaves marks. Depth turns fleeting interest into something unforgettable. So how does this apply to love? To the delicate dance between a man and a woman who are slowly learning each other's rhythms. It begins with understanding this simple truth. A man does not become captivated by constant validation, nor by unbroken agreement. He becomes captivated by emotional contrast, the peaks and valleys, the tenderness and the challenge, the laughter and even the disagreements that remind him he is alive in your presence. Think about the people you still remember vividly. Were they perfectly agreeable? Were they endlessly predictable? Probably not. Instead, they stirred something within you. Sometimes they made you laugh until your stomach hurt. Other times they sparked thoughts that challenged your perspective. And perhaps, there were moments when they even frustrated you. Yet, through it all, they made you feel. That is the secret. Feeling is the glue of memory. A relationship that is too predictable, that is smoothed into sameness, becomes like background noise, safe, yes, but forgettable. When every interaction looks the same, the mind no longer reaches for it. It is contrast, the interplay of calm and excitement, of warmth and playful challenge that keeps the heart engaged and the mind awake. This is not to say that we must create drama or withhold affection in order to be remembered. That would be manipulation, and manipulation always erodes the very intimacy we seek. Instead, it means allowing our full, authentic selves to breathe in the presence of another. When joy bubbles up, let it spill over. When something bothers you, voice it with honesty, not in anger but in truth. When you disagree, do so with respect, not out of defiance but out of dignity. Authenticity creates resonance. Resonance creates depth, and depth creates the kind of emotional imprint that lingers long after words fade. So if you long to be unforgettable in the heart of a man, do not strive to be flawless. Do not strive to be endlessly agreeable. Strive instead to be real, to be whole, to be the woman whose presence cannot be folded neatly into a box of predictability. Because it is not perfection that captivates. It is the pulse of being alive together. Understanding the patterns that keep you small. When a man begins to take you for granted, it does not happen overnight. It begins subtly, almost invisibly, in the smallest choices and behaviors. Perhaps he ignores your message and you excuse it as him being busy. Maybe he cancels plans last minute and you smile and say it's okay, even though your heart feels disappointed. Little by little, these moments collect like drops of water in a jar. And before you realize it, the jar is overflowing with resentment and silent hurt. But here is the truth many of us are afraid to face. a man will only treat you the way you consistently allow him to. This is not about blame or shame. It is about awareness. If you continue to shrink your needs, silence your feelings, or overcompensate by giving more love than you receive, you unconsciously teach him that your boundaries are negotiable. This is why so many women find themselves in relationships where respect slowly dissolves. You do not wake up one day in a loveless situation, it is a gradual erosion. And it begins with forgetting that your needs matter just as much as his. When you always put him first, you begin to believe that being nice is the way to secure his affection. But the irony is, over-niceness often breeds neglect. Think about it for a moment. The people in our lives whom we respect the most are rarely the ones who say yes to everything. They are the ones who stand in their truth, who can say no with grace, and who carry themselves with self-worth. In love, the same principle applies. A man respects a woman not because she bends to his every desire, but because she knows who she is and refuses to abandon herself in the process of loving someone else. So if you've been stuck in a cycle of giving too much and receiving too little, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, what pattern have I been repeating? Where have I been afraid to speak my truth? In what moments have I chosen silence when my soul was begging to be heard? Awareness is the first step of change. The moment you recognize that being endlessly nice has cost you your peace, you begin to reclaim your power. And here is where transformation starts. You stop seeking approval outside of yourself and begin to honor your inner voice. You stop waiting for him to notice your worth, because you start embodying it for yourself. This shift is not about becoming cold, distant, or harsh. It is about balance. Love without self-respect is not love, it is sacrifice. And sacrifice, when one-sided, eventually turns into pain. But love with respect, love with boundaries, becomes something entirely different. It becomes a safe place for two people to grow. You deserve that kind of love. The kind where you are not begging for crumbs of attention but are instead nourished with presence, consistency, and care. The kind where you do not have to diminish your light to make someone else comfortable, but are celebrated for shining exactly as you are. As we continue this journey together, let's talk about how to move from this awareness into action. Because knowing the pattern is only half the work, the real shift happens when you begin to show up differently. And when you do, something powerful awakens. Not only does he start to see you differently, but you begin to see yourself with new eyes. Silence has always carried a weight far greater than words. In relationships, we often measure love by the things said, the gestures given, or the promises made. But there comes a moment when silence itself becomes the loudest teacher. When a man realizes that your voice, once familiar and warm, is no longer present in his days, something shifts within him. He begins to notice the spaces that were once filled by your laughter, your gentle reminders, and even your small complaints. Without those sounds, life suddenly feels different, and that difference unsettles him in ways he cannot ignore. At first, he may convince himself that your silence is temporary. He tells himself that you will come back, that you are just upset, that it is only a matter of time before things return to what they once were. But as days pass and your quiet remains steady, he feels a sense of unease growing stronger. Silence forces him to face himself, to hear his own thoughts without distraction. And in those moments, he begins to realize what your presence truly meant. The human heart often underestimates value when it is constantly available. It is only in absence that true worth begins to reveal itself. Your silence becomes a mirror for him. It reflects back all the times he overlooked your efforts, all the moments he dismissed your feelings, and all the ways he took your presence for granted. He begins to understand, perhaps for the first time, that love is not infinite when it is not nurtured. And yet, your silence is not a punishment. It is a boundary. It is a declaration that you will no longer pour into a space that does not reciprocate. You are not closing the door to love, you are closing the door to neglect. This distinction is powerful, because it transforms silence from a weapon into a healing act. It protects your heart while teaching him a lesson words could never fully deliver. There is a quiet strength in not responding, in choosing peace over chaos, in valuing your energy enough to withdraw it when it is not honored. That strength is what begins to shift his perspective. He realizes that silence is not empty, it is filled with meaning. It says, I will not chase. I will not beg. I will not settle for less than respect and love. As he wrestles with this realization, he starts to see the depth of what he lost. The conversations that once annoyed him now feel like treasures. The care you once gave so freely now seems irreplaceable. Your silence turns ordinary memories into precious reminders. And slowly, he begins to understand that while words can be forgotten, silence leaves an imprint that lingers far longer. When you choose silence, you are not simply stepping away from him, you are stepping closer to yourself. You are giving yourself a space to breathe, to heal, and to reconnect with the parts of you that may have been dimmed by disappointment. Silence is not absence, it is presence with yourself. And in that presence, you find clarity. You begin to see that you are not defined by how he responds, but by how you choose to honor your own worth. For a man, this is the moment when chasing begins, not always because he suddenly learned how to love properly, but because he finally felt the weight of losing what he thought he would always have. Silence creates distance, and distance awakens appreciation. In that awakening, he is forced to decide, will he rise to meet you with the respect you deserve? Or will he allow his patterns to repeat? Either way, your silence has already served its purpose. It has reminded both of you that love cannot survive on assumptions, and respect cannot grow where neglect is present. Silence is not an ending, but a transition, a crossing from dependence into self-respect, from longing into peace, from being overlooked into being truly seen. There is something deeply powerful about realizing that you do not need to fight for someone's attention to feel valued. Many of us have carried the silent wound of trying too hard, bending our hearts just to be seen, to be chosen, to be enough for someone who never truly recognized our worth. This is a heavy burden, and it often leaves us with an empty ache inside. But healing begins the moment you allow yourself to stop chasing validation, and instead, anchor yourself in self-respect. When you step back from a man who takes you for granted, you are not creating a battle of power. You are simply choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self-love over self-neglect. Silence is not about punishment, it is about protection. It is a gentle but firm boundary that says, I will no longer allow you to take from me what you cannot honor. Men often notice the shift when a woman begins to embody this quiet strength. It confuses them because they are used to attention, explanation, and effort. They expect a reaction when they create pain. But when they are met with calm silence instead, it forces them to reflect. The absence of your voice becomes louder than any argument could ever be. The stillness you create becomes a mirror, showing them the reality of their actions, the emptiness of their words, and the consequences of their choices. But this shift is not only about them, it is more importantly about you. Your silence becomes your sanctuary. It gives you the sacred space to breathe, to reflect, and to return to yourself. It is in that quiet space that you begin to rebuild your sense of worth, reminding yourself that you do not need to plead to be valued, nor do you need to perform to be loved. Love that is true will recognize you without being forced, and respect that is real will honor you without conditions. In this space, you will notice your energy slowly returning. The constant anxiety of waiting for someone's approval will begin to fade. The fear of abandonment will loosen its grip, and in its place, there will be a grounded sense of strength, a calm knowing that you are whole even without their presence. Silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. It teaches you to stop explaining your worth and to start embodying it. It shows you that your power is not in how loudly you demand to be heard, but in how gracefully you withdraw when your spirit is not honored. When you understand this, you begin to move differently. You no longer tolerate the bare minimum, and you no longer settle for love that leaves you questioning yourself. In your silence, you grow. In your stillness, you rise. And one day, you will look back and realize that the silence you once used to protect yourself was actually the very thing that freed you. There is a truth many people overlook when it comes to relationships. Respect is not demanded. It is inspired. And inspiration comes not from trying harder to please someone, but from standing in your own quiet strength. When you stop chasing approval and begin honoring your own worth, something magical happens. The man who once took you for granted starts to see you differently. He notices your silence, your absence, and your refusal to accept less than what you deserve. This shift is not about manipulation, it is about alignment with your deeper self. Think of it this way: when you pour all of your energy into another person while leaving none for yourself, you create imbalance. But when you redirect some of that energy back into your own healing, your passions, and your growth, you radiate an energy that cannot be ignored. It is the energy of self-respect. And self-respect is magnetic. It does not beg for attention, it naturally draws it in. In psychology, this is often described as the law of attraction in action. Not the mystical version where you simply wish and wait, but the grounded reality that when you embody confidence and clarity, others respond to it. Men, especially, are deeply perceptive when it comes to energy. They may not always articulate it, but they feel it. They feel when you are needy, and they feel when you are self-assured. And the difference is profound. When you embody your worth, your boundaries become clear without you even having to say a word. You stop explaining why you will not accept certain behavior, because your presence alone communicates it. You become someone who cannot be dismissed, because you carry yourself as someone who knows her value. And this changes the entire dynamic. A man who once thought he could treat you casually now pauses. He begins to reflect on what he stands to lose. He wonders if someone else will see the treasure he overlooked. He may even feel a sense of urgency that was never there before. This is not because you played games or pretended to be someone you are not. It is because you finally chose to honor yourself above all else. And here is the beautiful paradox. When you stop centering your life around whether he notices you, that is when he truly begins to notice. When you stop trying to make him care, that is when he starts to care. And when you stop bending yourself to fit into his expectations, that is when he realizes your uniqueness is irreplaceable. So let this be your reminder. Respect cannot be forced, but it can be inspired. And the way to inspire it is by becoming the fullest version of yourself. Invest in your healing. Cultivate your passions. Surround yourself with love that nurtures you, even if it comes from within. As you do, you will discover that the respect you were once chasing begins to flow toward you naturally. Because the truth is, when you stand tall in your worth, the right man will not only notice, you won't even have to question whether he respects you. His actions will tell you everything you need to know. The beauty of transformation and the courage to begin again. There comes a time in every healing journey when the silence becomes familiar. What was once heavy and suffocating turns into a gentle embrace. A sanctuary where you learn to listen to your heart. At first, you may feel restless, almost desperate to fill the silence with words, with explanations, or with someone's presence. But slowly, you begin to realize that silence is not emptiness, it is the fullness of your soul returning home. Healing after silence is not about erasing the past or pretending that the hurt never existed. It is about transforming that pain into wisdom, into strength, into a softer kind of love that begins with yourself. Each moment you choose not to chase, not to beg, not to explain, you reclaim a piece of your dignity. Each moment you sit quietly with your own heart, you rebuild trust within yourself. What happens inside a man's mind when you go silent may be complex and layered. He may feel regret, he may feel longing, he may even feel confusion. But what matters most is not his reaction, it is your growth. You begin to see that love is not proven by how much you sacrifice, but by how much you honor yourself. Silence teaches you to release the need for constant validation, and to find peace in your own presence. This is where transformation happens. The silence that once felt unbearable now becomes your teacher. It shows you the difference between attachment and connection. It shows you that true love cannot be forced, manipulated, or begged for. It must flow naturally, rooted in respect and care. And if it doesn't, then walking away in silence is the most powerful form of love you can give yourself. Remember, silence is not weakness. Silence is a language of strength. It tells the world, I know my worth, I know what I deserve, and I choose peace over chaos. From this place, you no longer wait anxiously for someone else's words or actions. Instead, you move forward with grace, knowing that what is meant for you will never need to be chased. It will come, it will stay, and it will feel safe. So, as you carry this wisdom into your life, ask yourself, what stories will I no longer tell myself? What love will I begin to give myself today? What peace will I choose, even if it means walking alone for a while? Because when you go silent, the world shifts, not just in him, but in you, and that is where the beauty begins. My dear listener, I hope today's reflection has touched your heart and reminded you of your strength. Silence is not just an act, it is a journey, one that transforms pain into peace and longing into wisdom. If this message resonates with you, remember that you are never alone on this path. Healing takes time, but every step you take toward yourself is a step toward freedom. If you found comfort and guidance in this episode, I invite you to join our healing space here on Whisper to Heal. Subscribe to the channel, share this message with someone who may need it, and allow these whispers to remind you of your worth. Your heart deserves peace, your soul deserves freedom, and your life deserves love that feels true. Until we meet again, may you walk gently with yourself. May silence be your strength, and may healing be your constant companion. This is Whisper to Heal, and I am grateful to share this journey with you.